Hi everyone. So this video is going to be just a little bit different. So I don't know if I ever told you, but one of the reasons why I actually, started learning about nutrition, and I've always exercised, but learning more about how we can use food to fuel our body was because in my current clinical practice, right? So I'm in family practice, and I just realized that, we give a lot of medications. Someone has high blood pressure, we give a medication, they have a side effect of swelling, and we give this and we give that. Then they can't sleep, then we give that. And then they end up being on all these meds so many years, and then in their older years, then we, there's polypharmacy and so many things. So throughout my journey, I'm still learning a lot. And it's amazing how I'm learning about the different diets and who should use like a ketogenic diet versus a Mediterranean diet versus, Atkins and everything, intermittent fasting and all of that. But recently I came across Dr. Chris Palmer. Okay, so I came across him by listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman. So I listened to his podcast. If you don't listen to Dr. Huberman, you should. He has like answer for everything. So Dr. Chris Palmer is he is a psychiatrist trained at Harvard, and he does a lot of clinical research. But he's a psychiatrist, and he uses nutrition to help his patients, his psychiatric patients, instead of them being on medication, right? I just recently bought his book, and I'm going to read his book. And I'll let you know what, I learned from there. But I also let me mention a little bit about Dr. Andrew Huberman. I also discovered him through my whole, process of trying to get evidence-based, so not just coming out here and just splurting stuff that intermittent fasting is great for you. But Dr. Andrew Huberman is also, he's a neuroscientist with Stanford, okay? So he interviews a lot of individuals, and I have so many of them. Maybe I'll share them as I go, but I always like to read the books and learn for myself. And sometimes I practice these things on myself before I share them with you, okay? So let me go back to Dr. Chris Palmer. I learned something so interesting, and this is not to talk about a specific diet, but how a ketogenic diet initially started several years ago, I guess in the 1920s. It was initially created for epilepsy because at that time there were not enough medications, to treat epilepsy. So that's how a ketogenic diet came about. And then I guess in the 1950s or so, it kind of faded away because there were a lot of anti-epileptic medication or anti-seizure medications. And then going towards the 1970s, it came back in because there are individuals that have resistant epilepsy, from surgeries and stuff. But there's one thing that, Dr. Chris Palmer talked about that is very interesting is that insulin resistance, how I talk about insulin resistance, causing PCOS and all these other stuff and reducing your sugars. So insulin resistance apparently in the brain is a little bit different in the periphery or in the subcutaneous, lower body. But they all kind of like work in the same way. And I think what I've gathered so far from all of this is that limiting our sugars is very, very important, okay? And I was telling my mom the other day that I noticed that, when I eat certain types of sugars, like when I eat my chocolate, even though I'm struggling and I'm still working on it, on the days that I eat chocolate, and chocolate is the most processed food that I really eat. Well, on the days that and brownies. So on the days that I eat a little bit of chocolate or brownies, I realize that my mood is different. I realize that I'm a little bit more snappy. I'm not as alert, and happy as I am. But I also eat those, towards like my luteal phase, like in my other videos, like right before kind of like my period is coming. And, I do have a high stress, environment job, I'm doing this and, I'm working full time. And then I also want to spend time with my kids. But I guess what I want you to take from this short video, and I'll make another longer video after I've read Dr. Chris Palmer's book, and what I have learned is that if you do have any mental illness, and I'm going to try after I read this book to incorporate it. I'm definitely not going to be taking people off medications here and there, but I'm going to try and incorporate it. I mean, nutrition is good for us anyways. Incorporate it in my clinical practice, right? So that, most patients will feel, good, because I feel like some of my patients on, depression meds and stuff, they've been on meds for years and decades and going through psychotherapy. And if, after reading Dr. Chris Palmer's book, when I read it, from listening to him, it sounds very promising. I would be willing to use this in clinical practice because I really want a lot of people not to be dependent on medications and to be able to use nutrition and exercise on your daily activities, right? And I'm doing this on myself. But I just kind of wanted to make kind of like this short video. But if you do have a history of like depression, even bipolar or schizophrenia, he had a great story on this podcast. And I'll try and link this podcast. It's like a 3-hour podcast. If you want to listen to it, I listen to stuff like this, and that's how I'm able to bring you all this information and apply it to myself. I love evidence-based. Okay, and these individuals obviously are from top universities, so it's not like they're just spurting things out. But if you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have any form of even schizophrenia, bipolar, you've been diagnosed with all of these, I think it's worth, taking some time, and you desire to either be off meds or be on lower doses of meds. I think it's worth listening to Dr. Chris Palmer and maybe getting his book. I don't have it with me here in the office, but I did order it off of Amazon, and it's going to come soon, and I'm going to read it. I also did Audible, and I'm going to listen to it. I always listen to the book first. It's easier for me, and then I read it again to kind of get really the content. But I think it's worth listening to him. And like I said, this is not sponsored or anything, but it was just a very eye-opener for me that he could use like a diet like ketogenic, and it's a diet to help individuals with schizophrenia and all of that. I think it's very amazing. And I think all these diets, even with intermittent fasting, because even when you're fasting in a fasted state, you are in a state of ketosis. So I'm not definitely encouraging any specific diet, but I think every diet has a role for everyone, like a ketogenic diet, but has a role for epilepsy and all of that. But I think what you should draw from this, or what I have learned from this, is sugar is killing us. Like, I think our high processed sugar foods is killing us. And I'm going to try my best also, and maybe even eliminate chocolate if I can, or maybe get other alternatives. But the more that I learn, from another person is a Glucose Revolution, Jessie in Champos, and she's called the Glucose Goddess on Instagram, and I've read her book, and I'll share some with you. But I'm just throwing these out there. But all of this glucose curves and everything, our sugar is killing us. Like, I feel like if we are able to work on our sugar levels, our insulin will get better. We're going to get better insulin control, which in turn helps with so many things, from PCOS to diabetes, and even has a link with hypertension. It's crazy. So I'm learning all these things, and I'm so excited, and hopefully maybe I can share more with you guys. But I just wanted to do this quick video, and hopefully it'll be a blessing for someone. So check Dr. Chris Palmer out. Like I said, I'm going to read his book, but if you have any mental illness or anything, I think he's a great resource. And then if you really want just like more evidence-based stuff, Dr. Andrew Huberman, his podcast is great. He has so many different things on there. I'm talking about exercise, not just mental health. He had one that he did on intermittent fasting. So hopefully I'll do an update video after I read the book, and hopefully it's helpful to someone. But anyway, stay healthy, stay consistent, and I love you all. Bye.